Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Every company has a story to tell, from the small startup to the large enterprise, and everything in between. This is one of them. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Marco.
Sean.
It's a long journey where we're headed to today.
But do you actually know where we're heading, or?
I have an idea where we're headed.
Well, that's good. That's already something. At least you have an idea of the direction where we're going.
That's right. Right. It's over some water, over the water and through the woods, I think maybe is where we're going. I don't know how many woods there are there, but we get to talk with our good friends. They've been on the show before. The folks at Cymulate, they do exposure management and security validation, and they've been growing tremendously and have made a couple new hires to broaden their reach globally. Of course, you and I know Marco, and clearly they do. Threats don't target a specific region and leave others alone. They don't target certain companies and leave others alone. It's a free-for-all. and we need all the help we can get wherever we are.
It's a free-for-all, but also, yes, there are no boundaries, but you may be dealing with different culture, different way to run the business, and maybe different priority. So I'm not going to say it's uncharted territory, as you suggested, to be going who knows where, but I'm sure there is some kind of way that you need to adapt the way that you do certain things. But again, as usual, we're not the one that knows anything about this, and that's why we have a guest that we're going to discuss things with.
That's why companies like Cymulate hire smart folks who know what the heck's going on. And in that case, that happens to be the same person that we're on with today, Ben Fitzpatrick. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, gentlemen. It's a genuine pleasure to be invited and be a part of this podcast.
Love it. We're excited to have you on and hear about all that you have going there. And let's start first by, I always say when I was hatched, right? So not far as back as when I was born, but it kind of take a look back at where you started your journey in technology and cybersecurity, and how that led you to Cymulate.
Yeah, certainly. It's probably a little different from as executive leaders. I started my journey in the military. I started at a very young age, 17 years old. I joined the Royal Corps of Signals, which is a technical trade, I guess, and I joined as a technician. I progressed into the Special Forces. I spent 9 years in the Special Forces in the Parachute Regiment, and then due to a very, very, very unfortunate accident, I broke my back on a parachute jump. I got retrained, thanks to Her Majesty, into IT, and that's where I guess the story begins. I came from a pre-sales and an engineering background and moved into sales and sales leadership. And that's where I am today. I think it's a great story for me, personally, because I feel like it's a very multifaceted story. I've got experience on all sides, not just, we'll cut your deal, we'll do your deal at this percentage. Like I've learned to understand that there is a need that a customer has, there's a need that the vendor has, and how we bring those together is very important.
Yeah, that's often the difficult part, right? Talk to us a little bit about some of the experiences you've had in the different roles, and how that helps shape what you hope to do with Cymulate moving forward.
I think that's a great opener, and I think that There's been a definite transition in the market, both for customers, consumers, and vendors. Everyone's trying to, scramble and get to the end game, but no one really understands the end game right now. I think when I started with this journey, I spoke to maybe 3 or 4 CISOs who I hold in very high respect, both from Australia, Singapore, one in Malaysia. And they told me that this, CTEM, this continuous, threat exposure management, 2 of the 4 described it as the holy grail, which I was like, wow, that's a term that you don't hear every day. They describe it as if you can always be in front, or even not in front, but as close to the adversary as you can possibly be, then that's what we're driving towards. And it really piqued my interest. And that's what made me think about how I could help deliver value, how I could help deliver, I guess, some level of reassurance to the company or customer that we were doing everything that we could. I spoke to a number of companies, Cymulate being one of them. I have a number of board connections. I sit on a number of boards, and Cymulate. When I spoke to Al, he was the CEO. He was the CEO. Brilliant guy. Him and Al, who is the co-founder and CTO, they were the people who actually cared. They were people who I spoke to and weren't just thinking about the dollars and the value and how I got to 100 million ARR and how I did this and how I did that, how I could make this a sale. They actually still talked around how we can fix the customer's problem. And to me, that was the changing point. So, in a nutshell, I have my own drive, my own sort of, drivers to make me who I want to be and who the team I want to build and the people I want to bring on. But I could have worked for maybe a dozen companies. These guys are very, very serious about fixing customers' problems and are genuine, which it's not a common occurrence in this in the cyberspace.
You'd think it would be, but that's not the case. That's not the case. So, and it's an important part of making a big decision like you made. So, Marco.
Yeah, I want to just dive into kind of what we were playing at the beginning of the conversation and explore how do you adapt. So you go into the company, you meet the team, you discover the way to work, the problem they solve, the way to do that, and then you grow and you go to a different geographic area. And what do you do at that point? I mean, do you create another team that kind of speak the same language per se of that culture, that business? Or what do you do? What's step by step?
Yeah, Marco, it's a great question, Marco. And I think that I've got a great team. I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed that I have got to work with and have a team that follow me. And, also I'm very invested in them. They are a bunch of professional people who they're not your, I hate to say this, used car salespeople. They are more concerned about how to fix the customer's problem because they know this customer is important. The company we work for is important, but what's the most pressing question is for them is how can I help the customer? And I think what led me to be successful and hopefully continue to be successful is the team that I bring on board is they're focused on the customer. They're focused on the customer's problems. They really, really, really want to help the customer. CTEM, like I said before, I had a number of CISOs describe it as the holy grail. And when you think about it, it's not too hard to work out. Patching and testing and all the stuff that, I've been in security 20 plus years. It's important, But how do you actually prioritize a patch or prioritize a remediation? You have to understand what it means to the business. And unfortunately, the businesses are not very aware of what it means to the business, not just fiscally, but financials are one thing, and guess what? Like, that's all the board really wake up and care about. The board wake up and go, "Wow, we just lost $100 million." But guess what? What about a customer churn? What about customer trust? What about the name in the market? And what the team I wanted to bring on board was like someone who could educate the customers they were speaking to around, it's a problem, yes, but B, there's a solution. We are behind the 8 ball in APAC, very much so. I think between 15 and 20% behind EMEA and North America, which, it's a problem. It's embarrassing. It's something that needs to be fixed. But what I wanted to do was get a team that wanted to work with customers to help them prioritize not just the fiscal value, but also like reputational. Make it important to the company that they were doing the right thing. And generally in APAC, I've worked then, and I spent time in North America as well and Europe over my 30-year tenure. In APAC, I can tell you now over nothing that the executives take it very seriously. They want to be held responsible. They want to be accountable, and I think that is a big difference between the other markets I worked in.
I love what you shared here, Ben, and I want to kind of stick with the regional aspect. Clearly, people understand. Your team understands. I'm wondering how does what you do, Cymulate do as an offering, perhaps help not just cover that 20%, but maybe even take the region ahead in where they're going. Because I mean, the whole point of continuous monitoring, staying ahead of the attacker, right? Understanding the attack path and having the intelligence to know where they're headed and being ahead kind of says you can get ahead, not just play catch up. So talk to us about how what you plan to do will help leapfrog some of the current situation there.
It's a good question, Shane. Generally, I think that if we strip out security, if we strip out technology, everything has a life cycle. Like I hope you agree that there is a 0 to 100. If we look at antivirus for instance, like you look at Sophos, you look at Symantec, you look at McAfee. There's an evolution life cycle, and they'll do exactly the same thing, but it's a race to the bottom. It's almost who can get there cheapest, who can get there fastest. What can we do? Like I've worked for services companies, very, very high value services companies. Like I worked for Mandiant, I worked for NCC. Like for instance, the red teaming element, that's like a very, very, very high skilled area. We need some of the best people in the industry to be able to act like the adversary, to really, really, really understand the tools, the pursuit, to really, really like be able to do the maximum amount of damage that you can, or not damage, depending on the level of the ability. NTC and Mandiant did a good job of it. They scared the holy bejesus out of customers. I think the same as anything, it's an evolution. So what companies like Cymulate, and I'm not gonna say Cymulate the only company doing this now, but what Cymulate are doing are using automation, TTP, AI to be able to perform the same level of intrusion attacks, but without damage, but give the same validation back to a customer. Customers appreciate that. Customers appreciate that, we are scared. Of course we're scared. Everyone's scared about what the potential impact could be. But what we're doing is we're giving you a way to validate your security controls without actually, shutting you down, without causing you business impact. I think that's what's important. It's about, don't get me wrong, red teaming, pen testing, everything's important. Like 100% it's important. But what's important is also being able to do this at the drop of a hat. On a Tuesday or a Wednesday, a CISO wakes up and goes, do you know what? I'm not comfortable. I want to test my applications. I just want to test my infrastructure and my software. I want to go and test my SaaS. I want to go and test everything that we're getting as a service, and then get something back that helps me go, wow, I didn't realize last Tuesday that this was a problem, but now it's a problem. How do I go and prioritize this risk? And that's what it all comes back to. It's about risk prioritization. As a CISO, as a CIO, there's a million things out there. But how do I fix what's really important? Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. And I'm thinking back to when we had a chance to speak with Nir Loya, I believe he's the VP of product there. And he outlined 5 things: scoping, discovery, prioritization, validation, and mobilization. And you spoke to those 2 points, in my opinion, very clearly. Where how are you going to take your knowledge and answer key questions? He put a couple out. Are we at risk to this emerging threat, and do we have the necessary capabilities to protect us if we're under attack from that threat? And that leads to what do you do when something, you have to make a change, right? Either to mitigate or respond. That's the action piece, looking at it from a pure risk perspective. And I guess so with those things in mind, kind of leading it back to the region again, are the conversations you're having with folks that you're speaking with, are they at that same level to say those are the exact types of questions we're looking to answer, and we're trying to drive toward the same outcomes of mitigation and response with real intelligence?
Really interesting question, because I could speak to 50 customers and they'd have 50 different responses. Sean, it's the end goal to me is how do you respond? Ultimately, everything ends in response. Not just from a cyber perspective, from psychology, human psychology. How do we respond? How do we digest? How do we understand, the conversation? How does it make us feel? And then how do we respond? And I think that companies are only really on the verge, if at all, on the response piece. They think that having a retainer is like a tick box. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it is. And if you have a insurance policy with a cyber provider, yeah, okay, that ticks the box. And then you have to pay a low premium. But in retrospect, you have to actually understand as a business, what's important to us. If this happens, what do we do? How do we react? Let's not just tick a box. Why don't we try and stay ahead of the curve? Why don't we try and, not have to deal with 80% of the problems? Why don't we deal with 20% of the problems? And I think that's where Cymulate uniquely positioned. We're minimizing the risk window. We're trying to make it around, how can we help you understand your business? How can we help you deal with the most important threats / adversaries? And some of it's mismanagement, some of it's internal. You haven't done the right things. That's the difference right now. And I've worked, like I said, in security a long time, and you can put all the mitigating controls you want into a plan. But unless you truly understand it, as an internal person or an organization, then that's where I think the difference is.
Well, let's go there, Ben. I want to stop you because this is a question I often have in my mind, because there's so many technologies that we have that we can use to protect ourselves, but then there's a bunch of stuff that we use to run the business, and then there's a team that uses technologies to kind of bridge the gap and manage risk and exposure and all that stuff. So the question I have for you is, how does what you offer fit into a security program? Who takes the lead on bringing this in? How does it change the definition of the program, the team structure? I mean, you spoke to kind of the human element here and how people think, right, before they respond. Hopefully they think before they respond, and maybe even practice before they respond. So how do you fit in to that environment? Help people understand how they bring you in and do good things together.
Yeah, it generally is a great question. I think the difference is that people are becoming more proactive. They are getting more awareness, 100%. And again, not to big you guys up, but like the likes of this podcast, it's trying to help people understand how to get in front of the curve. Yeah, it's not about waiting for the event to happen. I think with Cymulate, it's the only company I've ever worked for that has a truly proactive element. It's not around the past, what can we do, and then how do we learn, what TTP, what IOC do we do to stop it happening again. They're trying to go from you have a security score of 60, we want to get you like 90. There's no such thing as 100%, guys. And I'll tell you on record right now, as someone who's been in the industry for 20 years, you can't protect against everything. So I'm telling you, you can't do that. What Cymulate are doing is looking at your existing security controls, validating them, and actually trying to work out the efficacy. How can these things work together, or how do they work together in order to make sure that you are protected? And if you're not protected, we're going to be the first people to tell you. We're going to be like, this is wrong, this is wrong. But if you did this, and this, which would take an analyst minutes, it would give you that coverage. And again, that's different to anything else I've ever seen. I've worked with companies who've developed MDR, and they've done things, and it's you guys are too stupid, we'll just fix it for you. That's not what Cymulate's trying to do. What Cymulate's trying to do is give you the education around your controls, what you could do differently to almost immediately impact those controls, if that makes sense. Absolutely does. And I can see why Cymulate brought you in. Your experience, you have to know this stuff, right? you can't wing it. You have to know. And I can see why Cymulate brings you in. All the different roles you've had and experience at different companies gives you that knowledge, right, Marco?
Absolutely. And if there is one thing that I get from you, if you have this, let's be clear policy. You have a team that cares about stuff, they don't promise things that they do not follow through, and you're not promising the moon, but you're promising something that is achievable. So what I would like to know to close this is, as you're expanding in all this new market, looking a little bit of into the future, as we're also closing the year with the prediction, how do you see things change? I mean, I think, and I agree with you, that being trustworthy and honest is always the best thing to do when you deal with client, but also oftentimes you bring something different to the table. And Cymulate, I'm sure it has some weapon in their arsenal that make them probably a little bit more appeal than other company. I'm not saying they're not doing the right thing, but what makes Cymulate special, especially expanding into market where you want to get more than that 20%?
It is a great question, and I think what's different is that you just alluded to it. Technology fixes one or two problems, yeah. Like point technology fixes this problem. We have four or five technologies, and they all fix very different problems. It's exciting that we can help customers in certain ways to do things in a point in time case, or not in a point in time case. Like, for instance, the BAS, which is the breach attack simulation. It's like pen testing, but instead of pen testing, you run once a year for a tick box. We do it like, oh, yeah, we want to do it this month, boom, 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 boom. We do it, and we can continually do it, which is exciting to me because it's a continuous element of safety. But if you want to change the scope, I want to do it to applications. I want to do it to SaaS. I want to do it, the hardware. That's one thing where we're going towards, and I think where companies are lacking is the analytics. Exposure analytics is what we call it. And it doesn't have to just be our products. Exposure analytics can take in your vulnerability management. It can take in, your BAS if you use a different product. Take in your score, your antivirus, everything. What we're trying to do is get to a position where our analytics can give you the ability to reduce your risk. And I think that's, to me, it's exciting, but also it's something that could change the market. It doesn't matter what you have or what you've got. It means that whatever you've invested in, that you can plug this in and you can actually get the realization of your investments, because no one likes spending money and then going, oh, guess what? You shouldn't have spent money on that, or you shouldn't have spent money on this, or that was a bad decision. It's about making sure that the money you've spent has been validated. And I think that's what exposure analytics will do. It will really help validate what we're doing globally, mankind-wise, and then be able to translate that back to a company as in, what can you rationalize? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? Do I spend 100,000 on this when it's giving me 2%? When I'm spending 40,000 on this and it's giving me 90%, it's all around. It's a business decision, and I think that's the thing I joined Cymulate for, was the exposure analytics.
Yeah, I can certainly see that, and I think ultimately it does boil down to the dollars and cents, right? Are you doing the right thing with the right investments? And having the other conversation as well with Near, it really says to me, I mean, and having all the conversations I have on my show, Redefining Cybersecurity, it's all about making informed decisions that are fast, decisions that stick, that you're not second guessing and having to retract and redo later, and decisions that don't destroy the team, right? It goes back to the human element as well. You can't burn the team out. You can't kill the business team's efforts to drive revenue. It's all decisions, and we have data. It's a matter of how you get the data, how often you can look at it, how easily you can analyze it and translate into something that helps make a good decision. That to me sounds like the perfect scenario, and I'm happy to have this chat with you, Ben, and congratulate you on your new role, and hope that the expansion in the regions that you and your counterparts are making are successful. Time to change how we look at things and how we measure things.
And Sean, thank you. I echo back. Like, I really appreciate having you, Marco, on. Have me on the call. That the team that's been built here share the same values as me. That they're not about taking dollars from customers. They're about how can we help customers? And that's what, personally, I feel is something that's missing in the security market.
You want to wake up in the morning and be proud of what you do, and because what you do is important. And I want to invite everybody to check on all the notes that we're going to leave here so that they can really understand and get in touch with you and explore opportunity, hopefully, with Cymulate.
Well, I'll include the link to the chat we had with Nir. It was an incredible conversation as well. So I'd encourage everybody to listen to that too. And wherever you are, Cymulate's in your region now, it seems. So reach out to them and have a conversation. Time to be more proactive. Thanks again, Ben, and thanks everybody for listening and tuning in. And stay tuned for more brand stories here on ITSP Magazine.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and the story made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.